Good evening, Dave.
Hey Greg, hi Sig, how you going?
I'm good. How are you, Dave? Can't wait to hear yours.
He's one of those like Adam and Nick who have these self-indulgent lists that go on forever and ever, but often some qualities in there as well as the little bits of stuff we should avoid. And these guys, Dave is one of those who sees so many films there. He's obviously got some really good recommendations there, but he's also got some good ones to avoid. Is that about right, Dave?
That's correct, yeah. I've narrowed it down to about 10 really bad films that people should avoid, and I've got about 20 films that were must-sees.
Okay.
And I believe this year you gave about five-star films or something.
Yeah, there was 4 5-star films this year from me, yep.
Well, there we go.
Excellent. You really like some of them.
So,
we'll find out about them soon.
As usual, we'll start with your turkeys of the year and then we'll work our way up.
Okay, so 10 to avoid. Coming in at number 10 was the Addams Family 2, the animated film that I don't even know why it was made. Number 9 is...
It's called Dave. It's called Money, Dave.
Yeah. Number 9 was... Number 9 was Jackass Forever, which in the early days I was a Jackass fan, but this one was just unnecessary, and they didn't do anything extreme. It was mostly stuff that we'd seen before.
It was more painful to sit through than what they endured, I think.
Exactly.
Material.
Yep. All right.
So number 8 was Book of Love. Number 7 was...
I didn't like that Book of Love at all.
Yep.
Number 7 was Benediction, which I don't even remember watching, but it was on my list from earlier in the year that I watched and didn't like.
Yeah, that was a Terence Davies film about the poet.
That's correct, yep.
Yeah, who sort of wrote World War I poetry, anti-war poetry and that, yep.
So number 6 was Lightyear, the Toy Story film that we didn't really need.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't like that too much, huh?
So number 5 was Something in the Dirt, which was a film that I was really disappointed in because I really, really liked the last film that those filmmakers made, and I was expecting them to go away and do something special. The only saving grace for Something in the Dirt was that it was the film that these two made during COVID when they really couldn't get out and shoot a big blockbuster like they'd done last time. So hopefully we won't see any more of something this bad from them.
All right.
So,
I think they only got a limited release at the Nova too, didn't it?
It did, yeah, yep. So my number 4 is kind of controversial because it's a film that's won awards, but Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, which is one of the only films I think in the last decade that if I hadn't have been reviewing it, I would have walked out of. I really, really didn't enjoy it at all.
Okay, that's made quite a few top lists.
Yeah, that was really poor. People, I agree, Dave, that didn't do anything for me, but a lot of people loved it, so there's not a lot of middle ground for that film.
Yep. So my number 3 was I Want to Dance with Somebody. I just couldn't forgive this film for missing out on so much of her life all throughout the film. I thought it was a real disservice. Yeah, I thought it was such a disservice just because she went through so much through her life, and it felt like her family just made a film that glorified the good parts and just skipped over the bad parts. So yeah, I really did not enjoy I Want to Dance with Somebody. But I'd love to ask you two, if someone's making a film about somebody's life, should they skip over the bad parts or should they do a warts and all story?
Well, it depends. I think you should cover everything. I think.
The warts and all makes it more real and believable, and everyone. Look, most people know the fans know the story anyway. So skipping over it, as you said, Dave, does something of a disservice. But that is also because of Clive Davis, the record company head, who is also on board as one of the producers there. So nothing negative or controversial to damage the brand there, I think. Anyway, but we've got the warts and all from those documentaries from Nick Bloomfield and the others who made documentaries about Whitney Houston.
Yeah, I guess it raises...
It'd be like making a biopic of Amy Winehouse and skipping over all the drugs and alcoholism.
Yeah, I guess it raises a big question though. We're expecting a Michael Jackson film in the next 3 or 4 years. Do you think because the family have to okay the film in order for them to use the music that's going to be similar to I Want to Dance with Somebody, where it skips over the more controversial parts of Michael Jackson's life?
I imagine.
There you go. It might be the case.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I want to be starting something with that one. Anyway, sorry.
So
interesting topic. Let's see what we get.
Yeah, so moving on to my number 2, Strange Land, which I really didn't enjoy because I picked where the film was going within the first 10 minutes of it. So yeah, and I'm yet to meet someone who's taken their kids along who have enjoyed that film too. So yeah, one to avoid. And my worst film of the year is Jeepers Creepers Reborn. Now we thought the last Jeepers Creepers film was bad. This one was absolutely terrible, to the point where at one point I wasn't sure if I was watching a horror film or something that should have been sold out of Club X. It was really, really terrible. But not only that, they shot this movie away from America because of COVID, but they faked everything, including a graveyard, which you could tell had polystyrene gravestones and fake trees in the background of the actors. So yeah, a really terrible film.
Assuming this guy's torture porn.
Yeah.
So that was your worst film of the year. Okay, a good choice there. Excellent. So that's the ones to forget about. Unfortunately, Dave, I'll say some of them, so it's a bit late to stop me not to go see them. Anyway, so now we're going to come to the top list, the list of films that you enjoyed, working your way up to those 5-star films.
Yeah, so I'll fly through some of these. The ones that were unlucky to miss out was Studio 666, the Foo Fighters horror, Christmas Bloody Christmas, which was the film that opened Monster Fest this year, Ghostbusters Afterlife, which then leads into my 20th film, which was Caught in the Net, a great Hungarian documentary where a documentary filmmaker set out to catch predators preying on young girls online in this amazing sting where he got adult actresses who looked young to pose as teenagers online and trap these sex predators. An absolutely brilliant documentary, because the filmmaker actually put a price on his head in the end, because some of the sex trafficking rings across Europe decided to come for him after that documentary. So
where's that one screen, Dave?
So I caught it online on one of the streaming platforms, but yeah, I don't know if it'll get an Australian cinema release, but yeah, I saw it online. I think it was on Prime or somewhere like that.
Oh, okay, all right.
What to watch for?
A lot of streaming services now put a lot of quality content on there, amongst all the crap they put on as well. But yeah, there you go. Okay.
And they have very brief cinema runs before they go online, so you might be able to catch it.
Especially Netflix and Stan do that quite often. Yeah. Prime and that not so much. Disney do it. Netflix do it quite often. Yep. Okay. Keep going, Dave.
So number 19 for me was Everything in Between, the Australian indie film that came out of Sydney this year, which I can't wait to see what the filmmaker does next.
That was teen depression and suicide, didn't it?
Yep. So number 18 was the horror film that brought together the metal universe, The Retaliators, which was a film that also had my favourite soundtrack for the year. It had a limited release in cinemas in Australia, but it's gone to streaming platforms now. But it's the film that every rock and metal fan wants to own, because some metal artists actually appeared in the film in different roles, but also the soundtrack was all original tracks that were put together, and they did duets between bands. So an absolutely amazing horror film if you get a chance to see it. Number 17 for me was the Australian documentary Clean, which looked at...
Jack, you mentioned that one, I think.
Yeah, an amazing doco that looked at the life of a fascinating Australian that I think a lot of people don't know much about, and unfortunately she's not with us anymore, but just an amazing documentary that not only explored her personal life, but also what it's like running a company that goes in and cleans up the most horrendous crimes and hoarders' homes and things like that. So yeah, an amazing documentary. So number 16 for me was Del Toro's Pinocchio, which I felt was one of the best animated films of the year.
Not to be confused with Robert Zemeckis'.
Yes.
No.
So
that hasn't got a mention yet. It's Pinocchio, yeah, it's a good film.
yeah, well, it was one of those films that not a lot of people realised was out in cinemas because it came out for 2 weeks before going on to Netflix. But yeah, stunning film. 15 is Drive My Car, which of course came out in Australia in February. Even though it made most people's lists last year, it did launch in February in Australia. Number 4.
On my list. Very good film.
Yeah. Number 14, Ethan Hawke's Black Phone, which I thought was a very, very underrated thriller that I absolutely enjoyed. 13 is Six Festivals, which is another one of the streaming films that actually did screen at MIF this year, but all about youngsters going to music festivals for the first time, but also dealing with topics like terminal illness, family abuse, and things like that. Number 12, another streaming platform film, I'm afraid. 13 Lives, the story of the Thai cave rescue that starred Joel Edgerton, Colin Farrell, and was directed by Ron Howard. A brilliant film. Number 11 was Bones and All, which I'm sure has made some people's worst list at all, but I absolutely loved it.
That made my worst list, yes.
It made my top list. Wasn't the top film, but yeah, it's an interesting film, I thought.
Yep.
And I can see why some people didn't like it, though, because it's pretty gory and bloody, and just the subject matter is a bit off-putting for some people.
That was not the subject for me. It just didn't go anywhere for me. These two guys, people wandering around a bit, and again, you can't feel angst about eating people.
It had a creepy performance from Mark Rylance.
Yes.
Oh, he was good. He was good. Very, very small role, but good.
Now, going into my top 10, my 10th film was Paul Verhoeven's Benedetta, which I thought was an absolute masterpiece of a film, and I know Peter Krause agreed with me on that, but when we reviewed it on our show, I think you guys didn't like it as much as what Peter and I did, but I absolutely loved it.
Back to Paul Verhoeven's sort of sexy things like Showgirls and that kind of stuff, where he puts it all out there, yeah.
Yep. So number 9 was The Quiet Girl. I know, a very, very different film, but a stunningly brilliant Irish film. Number 8 was Red Rocket. That was one of the first films of the year that I watched, which I thought was a stunning film. It's one of those films where all of the characters are pretty much unlikable, but somehow the film comes together in such a way that you really like the film.
They were really white trash characters, weren't they? Really.
That lost me a bit, man.
That was the catchiest top film of the year.
Yeah. So number 7, we returned back to Ireland with Belfast, a film that, because my family was there during that time, spoke to me a lot when I was watching that film. Such an emotional film. Kenneth Branagh did an amazing job putting it onto screen, and I know so many people who were there during that time that have had to turn that film off just because it's brought back so many bad memories for them, but a stunning film.
Okay.
Autobiographical for him, I think.
Yeah, so my number 6 might be controversial as well, but I'm putting Of an Age in there. Now, I'm doing that because I saw it at MIF this year, but it's actually getting an Australian... Yeah, but it's getting an Australian cinema release in March this year, so some people might put it in their list this year, but I saw it last year, so I'm putting it in my list last year. The most natural dialogue, I think it's probably one of the best screenplays I've seen in a long time. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. Number 5, now this is unusual for me because I don't normally put blockbusters in my top 10, but Top Gun Maverick is my number 5. A film I've waited 30 years for and just absolutely loved. Number 4, Ireland makes a return with The Banshees of Inisherin. So that's 3 Irish films inside the top 10. My number 3 is another Australian film, the documentary Firefront, that was put together by body cam footage from CFA officers and New South Wales rural firefighters and police of that terrible summer where we had the fires sweep through New South Wales and Victoria. The footage in this documentary is just absolutely unbelievable. It even had the footage of the Californian water bomber crashing. A firefighter caught that on camera, and they included that footage in the documentary. But to me, it's a documentary every Australian needs to watch, because you see just how fast a fire is, to the point where it's catching firefighters in this documentary. It's an amazing documentary, and I think every Australian should be forced to watch it.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, it's quite good. Stunning photography.
Yeah. My number 2 is The Batman. Finally, somebody made a Batman film that I thought did justice to the early days of the comics, when Batman was a detective and not a superhero. So I thought, a stunning film, a dark film in both nature and in visuals, but an amazing film.
All the better for it being a bit dark. A good job from Matt Reeves, the director.
And Colin Farrell was unrecognisable as the Penguin. I didn't recognise him until I saw his name in the credits.
Yeah.
And I have to say, that's my third Colin Farrell film that's made my top 20. 13 Lives and The Banshees of Inisherin and The Batman. So I don't think that's ever happened before in my lists, where one actor has been in 3 films. So, yeah, that's a little bit unusual. And my number 1 film is another actor who's repeating, because he was also in 13 Lives, The Stranger, with Joel Edgerton.
Okay. Australian one.
Yeah. I was there on the night when that film had its first ever screening to an audience, and I think there was no standing ovation at the end, because we were all in shock. But a stunningly brilliant film that caught both sides of a criminal investigation, where it catches how it affects a police officer and how it affects the criminal that's being caught as well. So that was my number 1 film of the year.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And that's made a number of people's top 10 list as well. There's A Stranger from Thomas right there. Okay, excellent. Another great list from you, young Dave. So again, some good recommendations there, and also some good recommendations